Ooh, thanks so much for the click. I'm Aaron Freeman, a science-loving comedian, and along with my partner, Dr. Peggy Mason, a fun-loving neuroscientist at the University of Chicago, we are the Brain Buddies, sponsored by the Chicago Society for Neuroscience. Peggy and I love talking about brain-esque stuff. In this episode, actually our first, yay! We talk about our empathetic reactions to the hit movie Hidden Figures and how it relates to Peggy's experiments exploring prosocial behavior in rats. This chat was recorded live via Skype, as you'll be able to tell when you hear it right now. You put a rat in a trap?
It's a plexiglass tube, and they're trapped. If we gave them the choice, do you want to get out? Yeah, they want to get out. Okay, if we turn the door around, they'll get themselves out right quick.
Right.
But under normal circumstances, they can't get themselves out, but a guy from outside can get them out.
A rat from outside.
And a rat from outside. If he's given a chill pill, he won't help, okay? So he has to actually care.
I want to analogize that reaction, that ratty reaction, to our reaction to Hidden Figures.
It's much easier for us to understand that it's not us being stopped by the police in 1960
1 or 2, whatever.
Or whatever.
Okay. When little Kathleen Goebbels gets up at the beginning of the movie, the first thing you see is she gets up and she has to solve this equation. I wanted her to succeed. Yes, I recognized it wasn't me.
Right.
But on some really profound level, I was there.
Oh, yeah.
I felt what I imagined was her anxiety. I imagined that I felt her pain, that I was there with her.
Well, the rats have to feel the trapped rat's distress.
Hidden Figures and your rats have in common this requirement for a theory of mind.
I agree with that. I just want to say, for all of you out there who are listening to Brain Buddies, if you're freaking out because we're using theory of mind in relationship to rats, just it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to use those words. You could substitute some other words. One rat has to recognize another rat and realize that other rat is not himself. In this situation, you're at a movie. You can't help her. If you could help her, you'd jump onto the screen and help her.
Right.
But that's not the situation. So I don't think there's a whole lot of difference there. I mean, one's a very highly cognitive task, and humans, rats, but it's very similar. There's an individual in distress. The individual watching that individual in distress in turn catches that distress. And then in the rat situation, they can help. In our situation, all we can do is say, I love that movie.
How much do we know about what goes on in the empathetic brain? I've heard things about the insula being activated.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I read stuff. I don't have any direct knowledge of what's going on there. There are usual suspects, such as the amygdala, the rostral insula, hypothalamus, and prefrontal cortex.
Now, the prefrontal cortex would have to do with the assessments of the situation, the kind of rational parts of us, for lack of a better term.
From what I understand, the prefrontal cortex is down regulating the panic.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Bringing in this is the other individual, not me.
But let me just say that anatomically, there's a guy named Richard Early who says that the prefrontal cortex has a bunch of direct connections to the amygdala, and one of its big jobs is to down-regulate the activation of the amygdala.
I mean, I think that seems reasonable.
But that would be a reasonable candidate for the kind of neurobiology of recognizing that it's not you, that you are not so overwhelmed by the feelings that you have from empathy, but that you have this rational...
And so what blocks helping? It doesn't block empathy. Empathy is this feeling, and the feeling happens. But what blocks helping is the failure of that downregulation to occur.
Right.
So in other words, people don't not help because they don't care. They don't help because they care too much and they can't downregulate that intense distress that they feel. So if you think about it, the person who freaks out is basically useless. When I was in the 1989 earthquake in San Francisco, I was in the backyard and the house we were renting was 3 stories above us, and it looked like it was going to fall on us. And I was essentially an immobile piece of useless biomass. Luckily, my darling spouse had some real serious downregulation going on and told me exactly what to do, and then dragged me to the back of the backyard. It takes some distance away from the high emotionality of a situation in order to make an action plan.
Now,
and that's the difference between empathy. Empathy can occur with or without the emotionality, but the action plan for helping, for doing something that's going to address the situation, that takes less emotionality. That requires a decrease in the freak outness and a recognition that it's not my problem. It's that other person's problem, and I can help them.
So that's really interesting. As I said, there was this woman, what's her name? Olga Klimek, who did this study on this study on compassion training, and she found that when people had been trained in compassion, they still sympathized with the pain of another, but they also had activation in the optimistic areas, the ventral striatum, the dopaminergic areas, because they were aware of their ability to do something.
The other analogy is with physicians who cause harm to people all the time. Jean Dacidi did this study, and it was a beautiful study. So physicians don't get that. They don't get the brain activation that we get, that I get, and they don't rate it as painful. They just don't. They downsize the distress, and that's useful to them, obviously. If they thought that they were causing somebody great harm every time they gave them a shot, it would be exhausting. They couldn't last. They'd burn out.
Another thing that your rats and I, watching Hidden Figures, have in common, I think, is the celebration of the successful outcome, right? Because because let me say, when I see your rats, seen your rats in those little experiments, I'm rooting for the rat to rescue his little buddy from the cage.
Oh, we all are rooting for them. We're rooting for them to help. Luckily, we're in a different room, so the rat doesn't know that.
Right? Yeah, but I'm just saying. But my own reaction to that movie was prosocial, and that's how we describe the reactions of your rats, as prosocial.
Right.
There's reason to believe, and it looks like to me, that your rats, once the trapped rat is freed, they virtually celebrate.
The free rat celebrates. The trapped rat doesn't.
Oh, really? So the free rat celebrates and the trapped rat doesn't.
Not that I can see.
Getting back to the movie, I felt triumphant when Katherine Johnson successfully solves the go-no-go equation for John Glenn's reentry, but she can't hear me. I mean, it wasn't even Katherine Johnson anyway. Nonetheless, even though there was I didn't do anything. I didn't give any help. I didn't do anything, but I still felt triumphant. Didn't you?
Right. Yeah, totally.
So
I felt triumphant when John Glenn asked for her to check the numbers.
Yeah.
Screw all of you. I want that woman.
Excuse me.
I love that.
Excuse me. First of all, let me say I felt even more triumphant when I found out that he really did say, have the girl check it. That smart one. Have the girl check it. I mean, it was so wonderful.
She felt good too.
Yeah,
she felt good about that. And we're sort of privy to more knowledge, so the story is a good story. It's a feel-good story.
So
I don't think it's about helping. I mean, I think that watching a movie is.
But you're rooting. I'm rooting for her. I'm doing, as you said. If I could have, I would have jumped my butt up onto the screen and done whatever. I would have given her, escorted her to the bathroom, or knocked down the colored only sign myself. I had a similar urge to help that your rats do, didn't I?
We all are cheering for her,
right?
And we're happy for her, and we're touched as hell when Ollie proposes to her.
Right.
But I see that as really effective emotional contagion is a little bit low level of a word, but you're just catching you're getting the whole emotional temperature of the situation of the story.
This is a kind of a thing that we social, let's say, mammals are. You can see the evolutionary advantage to that.
Right.
Animals that live in groups, you can see that there's an advantage to being able to. As a matter of fact, did you see Inside Out?
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things they talk about, how the utility of sadness is that it signals to other animals that you could use some help here.
Right.
And so so a lot of this prosociality that you observe in your rats and that we feel when we see this movie, it is a thing that serves an absolute evolutionary advantage. Was that Franz de Waal talked about it, because that animals who are believed or seen as altruistic can more easily make alliances with other animals, and it helps them to survive later on in life.
We're very good at telling stories and at reacting to stories. That's how we evolved over time. Listening to stories, and they grab us in a way that dictation doesn't.
The ability of fiction to invite us to empathize with people who are way unlike us, and we talk specifically about Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, which really humanized it. Again, the people, those Quakers up north, did what your rats did. They empathized with the struggles of these southern darkies, people who could almost not be further from their own life experiences.
I mean, Tom is such an amazing character. I find Tom to be, he's a character I still think about, because he's so well described, and he's such a rich human being, and you love him. And you love him, and you care about him, and you just abhor the way that this asshole treats him.
Simon Legree.
But
now, what's also where this comes in with your rats is that a lot of people who read Tom's story generalized their sympathy to slaves overall, just as your rats would in your rat.
Isn't that's an amazing thing.
For those who don't know, explain about your rat. How's that work?
So what we found was that albino rats won't help black-caped rats under normal circumstances. They've lived all their lives with albino rats. They see this rat, they've never seen any rat like that rat before in their lives. The rat's trapped. They don't care. Okay, great. So then what we found out was that if they live with a black-caped rat for 2 weeks, okay, one black-caped rat, they'll help any black-caped rat.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So they are generalizing. They apparently like their cage mate there for 2 weeks. Now they're living with another albino rat, but they still remember fondly, oh, okay, this is a little rat just like me, so I'm going to help this other black-caped rat who I've never met, but reminds me of my previous cage mate. Okay.
And
great. So that tells you that environment is very important. And then the real kicker there is that if you take an albino rat and you raise it from day zero in the black-caped rat world with a black-caped rat mom and black-caped rat litter mates, now when it grows up, it will help black-caped rats. Of course it will. But the kicker is it will not help albino rats, because it doesn't know. It's albino. It knows what it sees or smells. It doesn't know itself. And that's really remarkable.
Sort of the M&M effect. But the M&M, the guy.
We call it the Mowgli experiment.
Yes, well, that's because you're not like hip and cool like guys like me.
I'm not hip and cool. I'm so not hip and cool.
But again, this has been a crucial thing in African American history, because this ability of literature to make rich white people up north identify and feel the suffering of poor Negroes down south or poor Negroes in the ghetto, that has been a real mover in opening people's wallet and making people willing to go and risk their own lives, literally their lives and safety, to help these poor.
And it's literature, it's movies, it's plays,
and news.
But it's also individuals, people's stories.
Yes.
And that's where it also intersects with the whole, the revolution in the acceptance of lesbians, gays, the LGBT community. That just got normalized by lots of people telling the stories. Stories of their own kids, of their uncles, their aunts, their grandmothers, all that. So that my experience touches you.
Right.
That's the key. One individual communicates their experience, and that experience matters to another individual. That's the essence of sociality. That's the essence of empathy.
Thanks immensely much for listening. If you are a neuroscience fan, we hope you'll check out the Chicago Society for Neuroscience online at chicagosfn.org. You are also invited to visit Peggy's blog, thebrainisso.cool.com, and you can find us both on Twitter and Facebook. We're just getting started here, and we would love your feedback and or suggestions of neuroscience topics you'd like to hear us talk about. Until next time, wishing you hormones that are happy and gray matter that's gay from the Brain Buddies.